started. I love this session. It's a very personal session for me. You're going to see some pictures of my own fish in this session, which is kind of strange, but don't worry, it does come together. But we're going to talk a little bit about implementation science. If you ever felt like you were implementing a new initiative or a project or trying to get something off the ground and you felt like it wasn't working, fear not. There is a science behind this practice, and we are going to talk about it today. And we're also going to talk about small steps in implementation journeys and not ginormous steps in implementation journeys. This session pairs really nicely with the other session that my colleague Karen Castle is delivering in another room, change management. So when you leave today, that's a good one to couple this session with so that you can think about change management practices. By the end of this session, you're going to be able to identify your role in change regardless of your title. If you're a principal and you have a former leadership title, or you're an MTSS coordinator that has a leadership title, but maybe you don't fill a leadership capacity in your district, or maybe you're just, the team lead of your department or grade level, and you're here because you find yourself in leadership positions, or maybe you're looking to get into leadership. This is the session for you to learn some strats to think about yourself as a leadership. We are going to be talking about identifying and engaging other people and utilizing practices and ideas that are going to promote student success. So we're just going to talk about that whole what happens in education during change management and implementation planning. Okay. You can chat anytime. Susan is the best responder, or she'll filter those up to me so that she can share any questions to me. Okay. All right. So I normally do this in person and don't have a blur screen. And also, I don't really bring soda in my house because I have 2 wild children in my home. So I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to imagine that you are shaking a bottle of soda. Mine's kombucha. Gut health is the most important health. Okay, so imagine that I'm shaking a bottle of soda. You're shaking a bottle of soda. And then all of a sudden, I want to open it up. Should I open it? No. What will happen if you open a shaken bottle of soda, or pop if you're from Indiana, Western Pennsylvania, Ohio area? What's going to happen if I open that shaken bottle of soda? Yeah, it's going to explode everywhere, right? This kaboom. Thanks, Claire. Yeah, the same thing happens with change. And that's what implementation science is, the lid, right? I'm going to shake my soda. I'm going to shake my people up. We're going to change something. We're going to implement a behavior protocol. We're going to implement a dress code. We're going to ask people to engage in MTSS. New threat assessment policy has come out. New social emotional learning curriculum. We're going to shake it up, and there's all this change. And if we open the lid all at one time, the people are going to explode. But implementation science allows us to put the lid back on a little bit. So we can open it up just enough. It's still going to explode because it is little foamy, bubbly here. We open it up just enough that the people come to the top, and maybe they shed light on some challenges that the change is going to bring. But then we close the lid for a minute and we give people a little bit of space to settle into that space. And then we open up that lid a little bit more. Ooh, I hear it fizzing. And we let the dust settle on that new part or phase or stage of the change until finally we can open. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it great here. Finally, we can open the bottle or open the change, and everybody doesn't overflow with angst or fear or frustration or too much that they have going on. And so today we're going to talk about the lid. We're going to talk about implementation science, implementation stages, and implementation drivers that are going to help you. These will help you organize your change. Okay, so why does implementation science matter? I mean, I've just told you guys. I just told you. Because you can't do everything all at once, and you can't expect others to be able to do things all at once. And perhaps we also have to understand in leadership, formal or informal leadership, that just because we only have one change that's happening, maybe another department has another change, and another department has a different change, and another department has another change going on. So while our scope is one, remember that other human scope that you are surrounded by is multiple. Okay? All right. Let's get started. There are two really important things that we have to learn about implementation science. One is that there are drivers that drive change forward. There's 3 of them. We're going to talk about all 3 of them today. These are the processes and the things that we do that are going to create that environment that allows change to be successful. This is not something that you can just like throw together and say we have an environment that feeds change or an environment that promotes quality change. You have to create this environment, and you do it by really strengthening 3 drivers that are our whole session today. Those drivers are leadership, your professionals, and then your processes that happen. So we'll go through each of those. The other part that we're going to talk about is implementation stages. These are different phases that guide the actual work that you do. Sometimes we think that we can send an email and then implementation or adoption of this request is going to happen immediately. That's not true, and science has proven it. There are different phases of implementation that we have to rest through before we can get to, wow, this is a practice that we can finally sustain. And then in your implementation stages, if you don't really work on sustaining your practice, it can fizzle out too. So we're going to talk about all of those things in this session today. Any of those things new to anyone? Excited about these? Give me something in the chat box so I know that you're feeling it here so far. All right. Yeah. Again, please feel free to join with your camera. We'll mute you if you are not on mute. And don't forget that you can scroll down to get all of your resources. Okay. So how do you lead through implementation science? As I'm talking, I know that some of you guys already did this. I want you to tell me whether your title is a formal leadership title or you are an informal leadership title at your school. So, do you fall in like that teacher on special assignment realm, or are you falling in that admin realm in education while I'm telling you about this next thing? And don't be shy about it. I've been both at the same time. If you've felt that before. Okay, leading through implementation science. These little steps are the stepping stones to implementation across the board. At the very bottom, you have leaders that set a clear direction and foster a sense of urgency or ripen a change. Maxwell says, the right idea at the wrong time is the wrong idea. Anyone ever felt that? Maybe 2 weeks later, you said something, and then 2 weeks later, you said something. Everyone looks at you like you're wackadoo, and then 2 weeks later, someone different says it, and you say, hey, I already said that. You had the right idea at the wrong time, which sounded a lot like the wrong idea. So that's a part of this phase, understanding how to get people to ripen, challenge, and change. And then we have implementation. This is when we're actually doing the change. And this happens in phases too. There's like intermediate phases within this phase. There's like an initial implementation where you just get a little bit of buy-in. Maybe you build a guiding coalition, just a couple of people are practicing. Or everyone's practicing, but not at the depth you want them to practice. You're just building rhythm for the change. To full implementation, everyone's doing it. Everyone's engaging in all of the practices. And here, leaders are providing guidance and support, coaching, professional development, continuous professional development. Setting and forgetting is not a part of implementation science. You are letting the bubbles come up and identifying those barriers that are going to keep people from implementing something fully. And you're putting procedures, processes, support in place so that people can overcome barriers. And then finally, sustainment and scaling up. This happens through every phase. Can we sustain this implementation? How will we sustain this implementation? This is where leaders must continue to maintain the coaching, where they continue to maintain their coaches. In an environment of heavy turnover, it's really important to build this in often, that you're sustaining your leadership development, that you're sustaining those around you. Also, that you as the leader are not the only person that can lead this work, that you have enlisted other leaders, formal and informal, to continue leading this work. I rest assured every day in my career and in my life and in my current team that if I disappeared tomorrow, my team would be able to carry the work forward. And that's what I hope that you all aspire to do, is gather a coalition around you that can help you implement the work and then scale it up. How do you spread this to others? How do you make that ripple effect happen? What I want you to do right now, and I think that I might have moved some slides around this morning. So if your slide deck is a little bit out of order, it's still the same slides. I just moved them around this morning. So I want you to think of an influential person that led you or a team through change. And what qualities inspired you to follow them? Someone that led you through change. What qualities inspired you to follow them? What did they do? So they were this type of person, and they did what? And how did they keep you motivated? Susan, what do you think about a breakout room?
I think that would be lovely, Brittany.
Yeah, why don't we just do small ones? Maybe 4 breakout rooms, and or sorry, 4 people per room. You can share your screen and your mic when you're in there. And let's just do 4 minutes. So everyone take 1 minute to share. Thank you for sharing in the chat box too. I love that. But I just want you to just share about that influential leader. I think we need to talk about these characteristics out loud. Susan, is it ready to go?
Ready to go.
Okay, it looks like you guys should all be invited to a breakout room. Crossing my fingers that is the case. Is anyone still in this room? Or are you all in the breakout room? I think we have 4 people still in this room, it looks like. 2, okay.
And one of them is me. I'm just listening in. Hey, y'all.
Hi. I hope that they're in there. I'm too nervous to go jump in the rooms, but I think it looks like there's branchers in every room. So
Yep, and the sizes look good. I'm going to go back off camera.
Okay, thanks, Maureen.
Thank you, guys. Hey, Susan, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you too,
Thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
Can you hear me okay? Is my volume okay? Okay.
Perfect.
Thought I'd pop in and say hello. Oh, that's great.
I love everybody popping in to say hi. It's so fun.
That's good. I won't keep.
How's it feeling out there?
Really great. Yeah. I mean, it's going smoothly. The keynote was fantastic. Your intro was great, Britt. Like it's been great so far. Yeah. Can't ask for more. Now I'll knock on some wood and we'll just keep going.
What time is this session over?
2:10.
Our time, Eastern time.
Eastern time.
Okay, 2:10.
Yeah,
that's with including that 10-minute break.
Mm-hmm. Susan, no, y'all don't even need me. Kyle, you are the best.
Except for I probably just scared everyone when I was like, which time is the session over?
Just keep going, Britt. As long as you're able to keep going, that's when the session will conclude, when you feel like you're done.
Oh,
I'm kidding. Gosh, with your enthusiasm, we could be here for the rest of the day, which honestly I would stay here for.
I did eat 2 packs of gummies and I'm drinking hot chocolate. So I do feel like real life elf right now.
All good. I like it. I am also surviving off of espresso and a very large cinnamon bun. So whatever it takes, Britt. Okay, going back off camera.
All right. Are they coming back, Susan?
I'm just sending a message to say, enjoy your chat. We're closing soon. Okay, 26 seconds. I love how it counts down for us.
Oh, I know. Oh, and I guess I see everyone's coming back in with climbing. Four, three, one. All right, as you're coming back in to the live feed, share in the chat box. What are those? What's the quality? What inspired you to follow? What did they specifically do? You can put it in the chat box, or please jump in and come off mute. Maybe if Trudy or Maureen are around, they can show you how easy it is to share your screen and come off mute and say a word or two. We don't mind those drop-ins. It's fun. Consistent, patient and understanding, passionate.
I love these responses, Britt.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. All right. Here's just a couple of key qualities that we've heard previously that continue to show up in research. Oh, I love transparency with the difficulty of the process. Just being a part of the work, right? You can only be transparent when you're super real with it also and involved in some of the day-to-day and the high level. So vision and strategy. This is a big one. Making sure that people can see the long-term vision and the strategies that you're going to take to get there. Like what's our way to get there? What's our way forward? Communication, providing transparent and open and frequent communication on what's important or what's the need to know moments. And this one is gets a little mucky sometimes just because perspective is different from different roles. So sometimes in leadership, there's things that maybe you hold back from sharing right away because you want to formulate that idea a little bit more. And so that's still okay too. It's careful transparency, right? It's quality transparency and communication. You don't just want to throw everything on everybody else. Not everyone else is the leader of the initiatives. So you have to keep that into perspective. Empowerment, making sure that other people feel empowered. And from the number of people I saw that wrote in that they are in informal leadership positions, that is a space of empowerment. Adaptability. These are people that are able to see the rules, the black and white rules that exist there, and that they're able to be flexible and gray in between, right? You can adapt to what your people need and what your students need and what the teachers need and what the community needs. And all of those needs are very different. This fits very nicely if you guys aren't in this session to grab the information from building guiding coalitions or building great teams. There's an activity in that session called Head, Heart, Hand that talks a lot about how you can be adaptable for different types of personalities. So just a little note there. Pairs well with that session. And then they have resilience. So these are people that are able to navigate challenges with resiliency, that they give themselves grace and those around them grace to make changes and be able to bounce back and to let things stick. Implementation by science takes 3 to 5 years when it's done well. So poor implementation could take even longer or never see implementation come to sustainability. So one of the things that you have to remember is that you have to have resiliency when you hit rough waters, because you will hit rough waters over 3 to 5 years. You will see implementation dip. You will see times where people leave or retire or transition to a new role that you have to refill and backfill some of that learning and information. And that's where resiliency is key for leaders. And these are all things that I heard from y'all too. Okay, so that leads me right into the first driver of successful adoption and implementation within the stages of implementation, and that is leadership. And I already showed you leadership at each of the stages, but the leader sets the vision, communicates the importance of the change, and guides the organization through the process. Thank you, Susan, for doing such wonderful Vanna here. You can't drive work forward without having leadership at the helm. And I will tell you that both formal and informal leadership is key as the initiative grows in its scale and size, right? So MTSS needs both formal and informal leaders. And so does the dress code, though. You know, a simple changing of a dress code, you need formal and informal leaders. If a group of teachers or a group of informal leaders gets together and put something in place without a leader enforcing those rules, right, it's really hard to follow through on that. So the leader has to have that vision, be able to address people and their concerns, be able to address the move forward or the way forward, and inspire people, those around them. I think a couple of people wrote, one of their things was consistency, passionate was the word that came up. That was the one. My word that I like to use is inspire. If people aren't inspired by you, how can you convince them that they should follow you? Follow me down this road of this dress code. Follow me down this pathway to MTSS. Follow me as we adopt this new ELA curriculum. You have to be inspiring. You have to convince and ripen that this is a great idea for people. And so, are you a formal leader that has control over this driver? Like you are the principal at your school and you have to bring the team together and inspire them? Or are you an influential leader? What's your sphere of influence on this? In that you can wield influence over your principal. Like, hey, principal, I lead and talk to most teachers because I'm the MTSS coordinator, and I engage with a lot of team leads in our school, and they're really asking for a new curriculum, for a dress code, for a procedure that's written down on paper. Do you wield influence over the person that holds the control of the leadership driver? And so we're going to get into a little activity today. This is our first activity of the day. Remember that this is workshop. So at this point, I'm going to not talk as much and you are going to do a lot of the talking. If you open up that participant activity guide, which means that you've scrolled down, you've clicked on the resources, you've clicked on the activity participant guide, you are going to see 2 pages that look like this. Every time that you see a turquoise page, that means you have control over that driver. Now, I want to tell you that, I'm going to move over and sidebar, close the door because the dog was barking. I want to tell you that you can be a formal leader in one initiative and you can be an informal leader in another initiative. So just because a title doesn't mean you're actually wielding control over a specific initiative. So turquoise means that you wield control. That means you're the leader of the leadership driver. You're in charge of that. So I want you to think of an initiative that you are rolling out currently in your district, at your school. Are you involved in a team that is adopting a new curriculum? Are you involved in a team that is adopting a new scheduling model, MTSS, dress code, threat assessment, cell curriculum? Trying to run the gamut so you know how wide this can be today. Pick one of those initiatives. Do you control the leadership driver in that? Meaning, do you control setting the vision for that work? Do you control communicating the rationale behind it, addressing people and their concerns, or inspiring purpose? Or are you beige, gold? I'm not going to call it beige, y'all. Are you golden and you're wielding influence over the leadership driver, meaning that you are influencing the vision? Are you communicating the rationale behind the vision? Are you Are you wielding influence over how people's concerns are addressed? Are you wielding influence on how people are inspired? I want you to break out in your breakout groups, and I want you to decide who you are. I wield influence over the leadership driver of this initiative. I have direct control over this initiative. And when you're in your groups, I want you to go through the questions that are on each of your pages. Take a minute to write down your notes first, jot them down on a sticky note, write them down in your head. You're an adult, so use your activity as you want. But then talk to your group. Share with them. Say, hey, Susan, nice to meet you. I am wielding influence over this huge project of updating our standards-driven curriculum. And I want to answer these questions and tell you a little bit about how I'm doing that. And I want you to really think about what influence do you hold over this key driver, leadership. All right, we're going to go into breakout rooms. Give me a thumbs up if you understand your task. Susan, do you want to clarify anything for anybody?
Yeah, we won't be able to break into two separate rooms as far as leaders and influencers. We'll all be together, but we're all going to be sharing why we think we're in that role, the golden role or the leadership role, and then answer the questions. Yeah, creating those rooms now.
Yep. Okay, we're going to do these this breakout room. We can be in it for 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
All set?
All right, that number is going down. Susan, can you hear the doggy?
Only when you're doing a session. But not now. It's good.
I'm on mute. I'm going to go check in on that. I'll be right back.
The reason I got kicked out was I was still in the test. So when I came back in, it was no longer saying test at the top.
I think I'm still in the test. All right, so 10 minutes in this breakout room. I would love for them, I'd love if someone would come off mute when we come back to share if they will.
You need a bone.
I know.
Big one.
I had no idea someone was coming to the house today. Yeah, I'd love for them to share whether they wield influence on the leadership driver or whether they have control of the leadership driver, what their initiative was. Maybe just one, other people can type it in the chat.
Yeah.
I wish I could hear the breakout rooms. Is Maureen still in here? Maureen, are you here? I didn't know if I could go into a room without, oh, I can, but I don't know how to get back.
Yeah, I'm just checking them. There's about 3 or 4 people in each room. They look fine.
Okay. My microphone continues to sound okay too.
It sounds wonderful.
Okay, it's not. Sometimes I worry like internet slow or anything.
Nothing, no glitches of any kind. Going swimmingly. Unlike the poor fish. I can't wait to hear this story.
Oh gosh. Do you see the dead ones?
Yep.
It's a true implementation story.
It's excellent. What a great analogy.
It happened for real. And the leader was an informal leader.
Just goes to show you.
Gotta wield that influence the right way.
Better be working this right.
It can be dangerous out there.
It's too bad there's not a way to pause the recording during our breakouts. I don't see any way to do that.
Yeah. I think Maureen's gonna edit.
$2:10. When are you thinking of to take your 10-minute break?
Maybe after this.
I think that's a good time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good SWAT. Let me just do a 5-minute break.
I think that's plenty. Just enough time for everybody to get up, move around, come back.
In the moment change.
Mm-hmm. That's the best ones.
Well, 10 minutes is a long time. When they come back, can you ask them in the chat if the 10-minute breakout was good or if they'd like it shorter?
It's on a
The guy is spraying the yard for like the treatment spray. It happens quarterly. It happens today.
my cement people came today without telling me to fix my front step. And so they were out there and I'm like, why? It never fails. Would be a good number of people to have everyone have their cameras on, because we need to have just the right amount. Everybody could, but I think this is the safe space for a lot of people that they don't have to. And
Mm-hmm.
this is your last session for the day.
Yeah. 5, 4. And they're back. All right. I would love for anybody to pop off, show us your camera and come off, or you don't have to show your camera, you can just come off and do off your mic and tell us your story. Are you a direct leader, control of the leadership driver? Are you wielding influence over the leadership driver in a practice? And then while that person is sharing with us, everyone can just type, if you want to share your story with us. Hi, Jill.
Hi.
Hi, tell us about, do you wield influence or have direct control over the leadership driver in an initiative?
Honestly, neither one. I'm originally from New York, currently living in Florida. It's been a really difficult change. They're very wanting to just hold on to the way things have been, just very tightly, or leaders are the only ones that know how to do anything, and the rest of us are just replaceable, minions that work for them. And so what I wanted to do, even with this, when I asked to do this, I had to take personal time to do it. They wouldn't give me professional development time because I wasn't asked to do it. So I think for me, I am hoping to take back and provide them with little tidbits of information here and there that they might just be able to start implementing. I was saying to somebody that in Florida, if you go and you look up jobs and careers for different schools, it'll say MTSS 1 interventionist. And I'm like, but everybody's on MTSS 1. So it's like, how is that just a teacher, and so it's like, they just don't really have a great grasp of how this works. And it's not just repeating the same information all over again in MTSS 2, it's repeating it in a different way. And so I'm hoping to kind of through that way, figure it out and help them.
Great, Jill. Thanks for sharing. This is definitely a strategy that you can use and take back to your leaders and wield your influence by just sharing with them that you have a protocol now to look at the leadership driver. And hey, I think you have direct control over this. Or how do you think we can better collaborate? Or do we have data for that? So this is a great one, Jill, for you to take back. If anyone else wants to share, you can pop off mute and share your video, or please, I'd love to hear about these in the chat box. Also, Susan did type in a little message. Is 10 minutes too long, 10 minutes too short? Because we're going to have 2 more of these in our session here. So you can go ahead and type away, and I'm going to keep moving and talk about the next driver that happens throughout different phases and stages, and that is building your practitioner competency. So remember your hat that you're wearing today is, I am picking an initiative. I can pick a different one than I did the last time. You have total control over your learning today. And I'm thinking of this new practitioner competency, which means the knowledge and skills that people have that are necessary to implement the new thing that we're asking them to do with fidelity. So pick an initiative, and you're thinking in your head, do I wield influence over practitioner competency in this? Or are you thinking that I have direct control over practitioner competency, which maybe means you're like me and Susan and you're professional development creators, or you're deliverers of professional development, or you're a leader that is picking professional development for your teams. So let's start talking about practitioner competency. All right. When we practice or when we implement a new practice, a lot of times we're so focused on the tool or the practice, the evidence-based strategy, the initiative, whatever it may be, that we forget that there is a human element to adoption. And that is that you have a group of people that act, understand, work, and operate differently that will need to engage in this activity in a similar manner. So getting a whole bunch of different people to do one thing is really challenging. I want you all to take off your leadership hat for a minute and put back on your classroom teacher hat or classroom at a moment. Can you remember the time that you had to get all 25 or 28 or 32 or 18, however many kiddos you had in that room, to do one thing at the same time, the same way? I've taught all grade levels, and I know that that's a feat. And so same application of the problem, just the group of people that you're working with is a little bit older. The stakes are a lot higher at times, and you really have to think about people as through their psyche. So here's the psychology of adoption. You have these humans that have to engage in this work, and they're different than you, likely. You have to understand what they say, what they feel, what they think, and what they do. Who are they? What are their jobs? What are their responsibilities? What's a pain point for them? How will they understand this problem differently? What will they gain from this solution that you've brought to them? You have to be able to meet people where they are. This is another reason why this session pairs so nicely with that head, heart, hand building collaborative teams, because you really have to understand that these people are throughout your campus. All of the math teachers have different pains and gains because they have different skill sets. They have different backgrounds. They have different goals for their students, different styles. And so we really have to think about this psychology of adoption in these humans. And this is building practitioner competency. Practitioners cannot build competency from book studies and conversations alone. They have to engage in the work. They have to engage in learning about strategies. We're a product tool. And I talk about this a lot. And I talk about how we deliver professional development out to our schools. We are a computer-based, a web-based program. And so if we came in and we only talked about how to touch the buttons on that program, that would be great for some people. But learning should go beyond just that surface level. This is how you do it. This is why you do it. This is the background to engaging in it. This is the impact that it will have on your work. This is how you get others to engage. This is a metric for success. There's a lot more than just how to do it. Well, I gave them the instructions. Oh, that's just how they needed to get it like set up and do it. That's not really how they're going to do it, right? That word means a little bit different when we think about it from this adoption and implementation standpoint. I want you to think of a time that you adopted a new tool, a practice, or initiative. Did your teams have the tools that they needed and the skills to do what you asked them to do? How did you know and what happened? I'm going to think of one too, but we're not going to break out in breakout rooms. We're going to stay here because we're going to take a break in a minute. But I want you to tell me in the chat or come off mute, I want you to think of a time that you pushed out an adoption or you were in an adoption. Did the teams have the tools they needed? Did they have the skills to do what you asked them to do? I'm going to tell you one about myself and my friend Craig here at Branching Minds. Craig is responsible for ensuring that everyone at Branching Minds takes our compliance training. And I did not have the skill necessary to find them. I did not feel like I had all the right information. But Craig does a wonderful job of being available. Not only does he provide it in writing, but he sends me reminder emails. And so while I didn't have the skills necessary, I let him know he was available to that feedback, and he provided me additional support to get to the point where I completed my security training. So that's like a really light example. But I know that you guys have better ones than that, than my one here on the fly. Anyone want to come off mute or in the chat? My wait time is exceptional. Oh, Kristen, excellent, excellent. I love this one. Asking teachers to complete the DESA assessments, Devereaux Assessment of Student Strengths Assessment. It's a social emotional competency screener. Asking teachers to complete that providing step-by-step instructions. Okay, so did they have all the tools? Did they have all the skills to complete it? The DESA is a teacher-facing assessment in which they have to read questions about a student and rate them. Always, sometimes, never, right? Did they understand that it was strengths-based? Did they understand how to respond to those? Yeah, not just the telling training part. Oh, that's a good one. Even though they had the tools, they didn't understand the purpose. So it was a missed mark, right? They needed something else. Excellent, excellent. Anyone else want to share? Oh, Jasmine, hi. Go ahead.
Hi.
I feel like I'm on the like the radio or like a news, like QVC, when like the person calls in. Thanks for calling in. Go ahead and share.
Yeah, I was just relating with what Kristen wrote in the chat about they had the tools, and then the way I'm learning that they don't have what they need, though, is that they're not using the tools, even though they have the step-by-step process. And I'm really excited about what I'm learning here, because I've been kind of pulling my hair out about what we've done at our school is we've implemented a system to collect data for tier 1 and tier 2. And what we're asking the teachers to do is to use the process we've designed to collect tier 1 data, so that when a student is moving to tier 2, we have a place to pull that data from. And we went through all of the training, all of the specifics. Here's exactly how you do it. Here's a cheat sheet. Here's a video walking you through it. And in our minds, we thought, we're going to support them so well that they'll just do it. And what we're hearing is sort of this question of like, well, I don't know when to do this, and I don't know who's going to be looking at this data. And even though those are things that we talked about, there's some sort of hesitancy going on, which is telling me that I'm really missing something.
Oh, Jasmine, you're not missing anything. This is part of the science in implementation science. And so that is, Jenny wrote it on here too. Sometimes you have to walk alongside people, and we spend so much time walking alongside our students, right? Because they haven't developed all those skills. And we forget that adults might not have developed all those skills, or that we ourselves haven't developed all those skills, right? Sometimes you're hoisted into this leadership position where now you have to throw out an initiative to other people, but you didn't just arrive there. You were a really great teacher, and all of a sudden you're a really great principal. That's not really the same thing. You have to develop capacity for doing those things. And so walking alongside people, really giving people time and space. If it's not relevant to adults, they might not have read it at that moment. That's my problem, relevancy. I only do things that feel very relevant to me. So I miss a lot. And people are like, wow, you have it all together, but sometimes you really miss things. That's because that's a key for me. So some people need it to be more relevant to them. So it needs to connect or be more timely. Sometimes people hear things and there's a big lag between when they're actually supposed to engage in the work. So ensuring that you have learning and coaching that engages people in all facets, that multi-sensory approach for adults, is going to really help work with the psyche of your humans that you work with. And so here's a really great protocol for everyone from all of your examples that you're putting in. What does your team need to do before you move the work forward? How many of us as leaders, influential, formal, informal, how many of us pause and do this and think about all of the groups of people? I like to bucket humans. So I don't put people's individual names, but I put like the reading coaches or people that have direct teaching time with students, paraprofessionals, people that are like outside that have to support the teachers. So I group people together. And then I like to do a SWOT analysis for all of them. What are the strengths of this group of people? What are their weaknesses? What do they fail? What do they forget to see? Or what might they not understand? What are the opportunities for coaching that we're going to have? And what are going to be threats that this team of people is going to experience by this new initiative or change? And so giving yourself time and space with your team to sit down and complete a SWOT analysis to identify what your team needs is super important. And we do this, right, Susan, on our own team. We just worked on a process where I said, hey, everyone, indulge me. we're going to like write something up during this little session. And it's fun. It's fun to give everyone time and space to practice what they're doing, to let it identify with what's relevant to them. And so creating a SWOT analysis before you roll out initiatives to identify what do your people need, not what is the initiative's strengths and weaknesses and threats, but what are the threats to your people? What are they going to feel? What do they need from you? When do they need you to talk to them is really important. I slid through that a little bit because I want to give us a little bit of a break here. I'm going to do a 5-minute break. When we come back, I'm going to finish practitioner building, competence building, and then we're going to go into protocols for rolling out, like processes, the procedural driver, and then we're going to close it up with some dead fish today. So don't leave. Make sure you come back because you want to hear about the dead fish. I know you do. But 5 minutes and then come right back to us. You can just leave your computer up, your volumes, your voices are already off anyway. So just run, get your coffee, take a restroom break, and then come right back 5 minutes. So 1:32 for me, Eastern time. I'm going to grab water, Susan. All right, I'm back. Are you back? Give me a hey, I'm back in the chat box if you're here. All right, we're back. Okay, don't fizzle out now. Shoulders to your ears, drop them down, stretch out your arms. Welcome back. We still have some really good content to go. So let's talk about this. We were just talking about the psyche of adoption, right? Like how humans engage in adoption. So this is where professional learning comes in. This is why I love this stuff, because it's what my team gets to do all the time. And so there's some research in 2009. That research has been replicated time and time again. And I think this is a really good practice to just go back and think about this often and all the time, whether you have control or you wield influence over the practitioner competency building in any initiative. It's really important to consider this perspective. Thing one that's most important is direct training of principals and teacher leads is key. And not just training them how to do something. So like the leaders get to be the people that do everything, but training them and communicating with them on how to communicate the change to others, giving people time and space to use protocols to identify things like a SWOT analysis. Talking to leaders about engaging in a SWOT analysis before any initiative. That is something you can do for every single initiative, no matter the environment. Whether you're in education or you work at a company like Branching Minds, we can engage in what do people need to know to be able to do their job from different perspectives. Also engaging in how they're going to communicate, all the things that we're talking about today. Using distributed leadership is then secondarily key. This is what we like to call at Branching Minds building a guiding coalition. So those leaders plus a team of informal leaders then continue to go on and learn at a more deep level about the initiative, about the problems it's going to solve, about how people are going to be impacted by it. And those people develop an implementation or adoption plan as a guiding coalition, which includes further professional development. That goes to every practitioner that's engaging, but when it's relevant to them. So scratch the idea of thinking that you can talk to people about the new language arts curriculum during pre-plan week at back to school. Probably not going to hear you about something that big. That is something that needs to be spread out probably every week, every month, every email that's sent out, every staff meeting that comes together. When teachers are meeting weekly to develop lesson plan, maybe they do a short learning segment on this initiative. This is more short, more time relevant learning instead of just episodic, like come sit here for 3 hours and we'll give you all the information that we have in our head. We'll give it to you and then you're supposed to go and do it. This really allows people time and space to learn how to do things that you're asking them to do. If you go into the fragmented policy and practice session at any time after today, they're going to talk about turkey sandwiches. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but how do you make a turkey sandwich? Well, of course, you get the turkey and the Swiss cheese and the ketchup. Susan, you put ketchup on your turkey sandwich?
No, thank you.
But you just said make a turkey sandwich. You didn't tell me how to do it. So sometimes those step-by-step instructions miss the mark a little bit, right? Because we assume that people have the same gaps or perceptions as us. And so you end up getting ketchup on your turkey sandwich because, well, you didn't really teach them how. You just gave them a do this kind of directive. All right. We're going to go into breakout rooms. We're going to do 10 minutes. 10 minutes for this one. I want to do 12 minutes for the next one.
Can we honor a request from Danita to do just a couple of more minutes? Can we do 12 this time?
Yeah,
Britt?
okay. That sounds like a good idea, Susan. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're going to do 12 minutes. I want you to think of an initiative. It can be the same one that you thought of earlier or a different one. You are either a part of it or you're leading it. So you either have control, you're turquoise, and answering those questions in front of your team, or you're golden, you're wielding influence over this experience. Do you wield influence over practitioner competency, or do you have direct control? Are you someone that's selecting professional development? Are you someone that's trying to tell someone what you need to learn? I want you to go ahead in your breakout rooms, and I want you to discuss this one. Oh, I think I just got a post on LinkedIn, a quote, but it's not my quote. It's Maxwell's quote. So smart, so I'll take it.
I'll take credit for it if I were you. Laurie lifted up a great question in the chat that I responded to. You might want to address it briefly about how Branching Minds really does help examine that core health, so we're not just pushing kids right into intervention without looking at the effectiveness of the core.
Oh, I see here. Let me read this.
And where does that fit into all of these competencies we're talking about?
I might circle back to it at the end. What's 12 minutes take us to? 10 minutes now, 148. And then I have 30 minutes left.
150. Yeah, 140. And we're 2 minutes in. Yep.
Okay.
What is the organizational drivers? Don't we do that twice? Let's see. Organizational, yeah. It's a meaty one.
The next one.
All of it. It's such good content, but there's a lot of meat to it.
I know. And I know that this time that they have together is so good.
That's what
I
they were all-
actually, I think even though these are 90-minute sessions in person, I wonder if we need to make them 2 hours remotely because of the like the transition text to get breakout rooms set. Like I really have to key them up because I can't walk around to the tables.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I think it definitely would be beneficial to make this a 2 hour.
and it could really be a whole day. All of these could be.
All of them could be.
But our goal is micro learning. These ones aren't as micro. The other ones are much more micro.
Yeah. Make them micro where you can, and then give the extra time for the ones that are so important, like this one. I wonder which visual Gabby was referring to. What visual were you just on? Go back.
Oh, I think she was talking about the turkey sandwich.
Aha.
I think the visual, like the mental image that she got
Mental
of,
image,
like,
yeah.
on the turkey sandwich. Like we say, go make a turkey sandwich, and that seems like the best instructions that you could have given. But then you come back and you get catch up on it, and you wonder, why didn't you do it right?
Mm-hmm. And if I make a turkey sandwich, it has to be a Bobby.
What's a bobby?
Ooh, a Bobby is a favorite sub up here in Delaware that has the turkey, the cranberry sauce, and the stuffing on it with gravy. It's a sub sandwich.
Oh my gosh.
It's delicious.
I'm going to have to tell everyone about your sandwich.
I will. If they've ever been to Capriati's or Casapula's in Delaware, you can get a Bobby.
Listen to you. Casapula's, Capriati's.
You know what? You go to the sub shop often when you have all your favorite sub shops in the area.
think we're making people hungry.
I know I am. I'd love to have a Bobby right now. Maybe for dinner.
I want to try to go into a breakout, but I don't want to get lost.
Oh, no, I'm staying right here.
Okay, and the next breakout room, I'm definitely going in. So if I get totally booted out, you got the ends.
I'll take care of it.
Ripple effect.
It's one of those things that once you do it once, you're okay. But I'm always the same. I don't want to get caught somewhere where I'm out in the ether world somewhere. I don't even know where I am.
Well, after, I had the spinning issue, so I'm just feeling. It's super smooth. Who's out there still just streaming, didn't pop into a breakout room? In the chat box, do you want to share with us if you wield influence or have direct control over practitioner competency? What are your peeps' strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities? Where do you want to spend your time? We're going to have to do a shorter breakout room if we even do a breakout room for the last one.
Yeah. I think they're getting the gist of how helpful these reflection tools can be. So probably not necessary to do with the last driver.
Yeah. You're anxious for them to return.
Come on.
2 minutes.
I know. Dr. Cooper's by herself in the breakout room. I should have checked that earlier.
Yeah. Do we want to bring them back then? Since do we have some with like only 1 or 2 also?
No, we've got 4 and 5 in the other ones.
Okay.
So I'm assuming that's one of the rooms people didn't join. The nice thing about this is that there's no added minute after, like you don't close the rooms and then there's
No,
a
they just
minute
wait.
afterward. At least you counting down.
Okay, 25 seconds. Finally. You're back. I missed you all. I was counting down the minutes for you all to come back to me. Please share in the chat box for this one. We have 30 minutes. We have one more driver that we're going to talk about. It's one of my favorite drivers. It's a process driver. But please share in the chat box if you wield influence over competency building or you have direct control. And when we get to a little natural break, I'd love to share some of those out loud with you all. As a professional development team, we have some direct control over it, but we also have to wield influence sometimes and letting y'all know what kind of professional development is available out there. So I think we all live in all of those areas. All right, here we go. The final driver that fits within each of the stages of implementation is the organizational driver. I call this the process driver. This is the structures that facilitate communication, collaboration, and coordination among your various stakeholders. This is the idea that you have developed a process or a pipeline to do the things you're asking people to do. For example, I want you to implement tier 2 interventions this year, but you don't give anyone time, space, or tools to do that. You expect them to do that in the same time that they had previously. That is an organizational driver failure on our parts, and we do it all the time unintentionally. We want to try to fit more things into the same amount of time or into the same processes. What you are doing has to change when you have a new initiative, and so you have to think about those organizational changes that need to take place. You cannot offer the same amount of support if you do not move around your paraprofessionals. Oh, my schedule needs to change. That is a muscle that leaders must build that you do not have when you are in the classroom. It changes with perspective. Your perspective on the organization changes. You grow in your experience. You grow in your understanding of what's happening around you. And therefore, you have more responsibility to carry the weight of changing organizational structures. Jasmine just asked a great question, so it's a nice time for me to kind of transition to that. No, there's no order to these. All of these are implemented within each of the stages. You have to understand what needs to happen with leadership, organization, and practitioner competency at pre-implementation to get people ready. What are all throughout each of those lenses? What do I need to do at pre-implementation? Then I'm going to put on each of those glasses in initial implementation, in full implementation, and then through sustainability. If you let one drop, your implementation is missing a key spot. And that's why one person can't implement a whole project on their own. You have to have a team. So organizational drivers, again, clear roles and responsibilities. Hey, you're going to uphold the leadership driver. You're going to monitor the practitioner competency driver, and I'm going to monitor the processes. That way you have enough people. Clear communication channels to understand what's happening at each of those at the same time. And I want you to think grand scale, like district-wide. Do you have a professional development team? Is their professional development that's being codified and delivered in your professional development to all teachers aligned to your new initiatives, or is it misaligned? So this is about silos at grand scales as well, if we have any district leaders on this call. So I want you to think about that from all perspectives. Collaborative teams. And that doesn't mean sitting down at the table together. That means that you have clear transparency into each other's workload, each other's roadmap, and that you're able to even airlessly collaborate. Like, hey, these two things need to happen at the exact same time. Let's move that forward together. Clear decision-making processes. Someone has to be the decision maker. We like to talk about consent more than consensus here, which is, I don't necessarily agree, but I can give in so that we can move this project forward. And then clear data and evaluation. This is, do you have the data to identify what's needed? I think Lori asked a question about, we don't have the data to identify the interventions that are working, or the data to identify what's working at tier 1 before we go on to tier 2. If you don't have data, it's really hard to move from point A to point B. So what metrics are you using to demonstrate to others that you're having successes? All of this occurs over stages, like I just said. And so you're looking at the organizational driver, your leadership driver, through readiness, implementation, and sustainability. Processes when you're looking at the readiness phase. You're thinking about scope. You're thinking about how big the project is. Stakeholders, resource allocation, establish your communication plan. You're just planning in the readiness phase. How many people are you involving? As many as you need, as many as you identify in that key stakeholders to build your guiding coalition. If you're launching a whole school, you need a pretty good sized team. If you're launching a whole district, you need a district team, and each school site needs a team. If you're launching a grade level, you need a grade level team. So just think about scale when you're thinking about your teams. From readiness, you move into installation. This is just putting things in place. You got to start setting up your processes before people can engage in things. And sometimes this feels like chicken or egg, right? Like, do I give them the information first and train them how to do it? Or do I set up the processes first? And so I like to process first, set up that processes, kind of get things in place and get them queued up to get ready to do the work. Risk mitigation plans are great here. I love a pre-mortem. A good pre-mortem goes a long way. We have another session on pre-mortems happening today. A pre-mortem is when you pretend like you can see into the future and that your project has died and you're wondering, why did that happen? And you write down all the reasons why that may have happened so that you can plan to mitigate those challenges. Develop data collection templates, anything that people need to move work forward. Implementation is where the work gets hard. This is when you are taking that lid off a lot. Often, right? As people bubble up their problems, they're doing work. Some people are engaging, then more people are engaging, and finally all people are engaging in the work. And at sustainability, you're tracking progress and milestones, you're continuing to go in and teach and support people. I want you to think about, and I'm going to give you a chance to think about this, and I'm going to tell you about one. Think about a practice or initiative or tool. Did you develop processes? Did you develop processes through a staged approach to implementation for people? Or did you just give them everything all at once? We developed all of these things and now go do it all at the same time. Have you considered a staged approach? What happened if you didn't? Does anyone have an example of a staged approach? Oh, I don't want to show that. I'm going to show this one. Don't look, avert your eyes. I'm going to go back and show you the elephant. While you're thinking of your story, I want to tell you a real life implementation story of my own. This is my fish tank in my house. It has beautiful neon fish in it and these neon plants. Here's what happened. In the readiness phase, my informal leader's son decided to tell us that he wanted a fish tank and that he would take care of it. Not a little fish tank with a betta fish. He wanted a big fish tank with a bubbler and a light to go in his bedroom. Okay, he wielded a ton of influence over the leaders in the household. And so we said, we need you during your readiness phase to do some research on like fish tanks. Like, we don't know anything about fish. We have dogs. Like, I've never had fish before. So we had him do some research. So we went over to his little school. It's called Gulfgate. We went over to his little school and He went into the library at Gulfgate and he said to the media center specialist, I need to get a book on how to get a fish tank up and running. And so we got all the fish tank books in the Gulfgate Elementary Library. He brought them home. He read all the books. And he said, all right, I think I know. Let's go get the fish. And we said, wait, you can't get the fish yet. We got to get the tank. And then he said, oh, and then I want to decorate the tank. So this was installation. So we installed the fish tank during installation. We put the water in, we put the bubbler in, got the light turned on, picked out all of these plants. He wanted neon. So, I had to go find all the neon plants that existed, right? Still wielding a ton of influence. He was very like, okay, we need to do the next thing. We need to do the next thing. So we got everything ready, installation, and we were like, high five. Let's go get the fish. Full implementation right away, right? We went full implementation right away and we got the fish. 4 hours later, the fish were dead. Here they are. The fish are dead in the tank. You can't even see this little orange one that's right here, floating right here. He's inside the plant, and the little albino neon guy, catfish, died here at the bottom. I know, y'all. People are so sad, but this is like a real life implementation story. We did everything right in readiness. We read all the books in the library, in the elementary school library, about how to do a fish tank, how to cycle the water, how to do all the stuff. And then we did all the installation. I mean, look at this fish tank. It's beautiful, right? Like it has all these plants in it. It's wonderful. And then we went from installation to full-blown implementation. We dropped those 8 fish in there, and 4 hours later, they were dead. What did we miss? How often do you feel like that? How often do you feel like you've taken all the right steps, but you've actually misstepped the entire time? Or you took too big of a step all at once. The environment that we created wasn't sensitive enough to the fish's needs. So we didn't understand what our fish needed, the practitioners, right? The people that were in the fish tank. We assumed that because we already had a beta fish in another bowl previously that lived for so long that we were just excellent fish taker carer-overs. So we didn't really plan much more in addition to that. We didn't know that there were warning signs that the fish were struggling. Turns out they were swimming up and down, and that meant that they were struggling. So we could have done something to solve it then. And then we really didn't have any training. We just read a book and pretended like we became experts. So I'm going to go back to my picture here. Implementation can feel a lot like the elephant in the room. But the reality is, if you add the ladder rungs to each of your steps and slow down, that your implementation will be much more successful. Our fish tank, once all said and done, was around $300 down the drain. It's sitting right next to me still in my office with 0 fish in it because we haven't been able to return to that implementation, which is what often happens at our school sites. We dump all of our resources and energy in, and then we say, you know what? It didn't work, and it was too costly, and we're not trying it again. The cost of unplanned implementation is far too high to take for granted. And so it's really key to make sure that you have those organizational drivers, to make sure that you have those competency drivers, and to make sure that you have those leadership drivers in place throughout stages, and that you add enough ladder rungs, so that everyone can climb the ladder, so that the steps aren't so big that people can't climb the ladder. We don't want you to end up with dead fish. That is not what we want here. Last one. Do you wield influence over the process driver, the organizational driver, or do you wield control over setting up new processes on your campuses? Tell me in the chat box, who wields control? I think our session ends at 2:10. I'm going to keep y'all here with me. Does anyone want to come off mute and tell us, do you wield control over processes? Do you have direct influence over some processes? Are you more like the fish tank, or do you plan out different rungs on your ladder to make sure that people are successful in their environment? Anyone want to join in here? I'll give you time for those of you that are typing. Oh, Oh, Jenny. Hey, welcome, Jenny. Welcome to QVC show, Branching Minds, pre-conference. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. Go ahead.
Okay. So I work with instructors who use some of the resources that have been created. And then as there's missteps, I get to help create and add in pieces and parts to help them be successful through the shared power type of thing. So.
Excellent. Love that. How beneficial is it to your teams? How do they respond to that?
They respond well because they have shared voice. So they're able to use a tool that might have been implemented. Maybe there's some bumps in the road when they're using it with teachers. And so hearing their voice and how or what might need to be tweaked, even if it's not the exact way that they want, they are more willing because they had some shared voice in that.
Excellent. Jenny, I have one more question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you collect feedback from processes in meetings, or do you have a protocol that you use?
Well, since we have a bigger company, we do surveys. And then sometimes people will do emails when it comes to how that's working. But then we also do observational assessment with the partners that we work with to see how it's working for them in their buildings and in the classroom.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks, Jenny. Jenny's example was a great example of ensuring that when you are engaging in process feedback, that you are following up with people in a way that makes sense to benefit and change your processes that you're doing. So if waiting till a meeting isn't going to do that, if you need a space to collect it in a parking lot, or maybe you need to send out a survey every once in a while. Surveys are really great to understand what people's needs are so that you can say, I've gathered enough of everyone's feedback. Because not everyone talks in meetings, right? Sometimes you need a different space. Excellent. Thanks, Jenny. Y'all can keep sharing in the chat box. I'm going to make sure I get you out of here on time so that you can network at the end of this. Oh, Trudy, thanks for sharing. Trudy's a brancher, and she worked with Jenny and Conscious Discipline in our district. Oh, Jenny, you didn't tell me you were Conscious Discipline. Hey, girl. All right.
Yep. love my Conscious Discipline and MTSS.
Shout out to Conscious Discipline. Everyone go take a peek. Here we go. Impact of influence and staged implementation. This is like, to me, if you leave something today and you are the leader, leave with this. If you are someone that needs to show this to your leader, take a picture of it and take it to them right after the networking event. Don't forget to go to the networking event. Your locus of control as it goes up, which means you wield influence or have control over something, and the quality of execution will tell you about the change that you're about to leave. And I love this because I look at status quo. When things are just staying the same, it likely means that people involved in the change don't have a ton of control and they don't have a quality execution. If you have a ton of control and terrible execution, you're going to cause controversy. Have you ever had a time where you felt like, I am not going to do this. I hate this. I'm not excited about this. That's this. That's when someone has a ton of control, but they're not in a quality way rolling out the project to you. This is the one that kills me. You can have a low locus of control, so you can just wield influence and have excellent quality of execution. So employ all the strategies we talked about today and improve outcomes. Improve outcomes for students. So those of you that are sitting here today and you're thinking, I have a low locus of control, I do not have a ton of influence, I'm not a formal leader, stop. You can improve outcomes. Now I want you to reflect inward. Is your locus of control high? Then you must engage in quality execution of your projects because you are the linchpin in transformation. You will move from improved outcomes to transformational outcomes, transforming your whole system, ensuring that all teachers and students are successful. Locus of control high, you are responsible for that. And you must take that responsibility seriously. And that is how you get to transformation. And so please share this. Please shout it from the rooftops. And as you work through
I'm not sure what happened.
I'm not sure what happened either. As far as where did Brittany go is the question.
I don't know. That's interesting, isn't it?
It is very interesting. So we can go ahead and
watch you do your magic, maybe, or
bring
I'm
this.
sorry.
There she comes. We're gonna bring this to a close, but we really
I'm
wanted you to come back.
I'm so sorry. Don't worry, everyone. I was right there on the edge of my seat. Sorry for leaving y'all. As you move forward and you employ strategies like this, as you talk about leadership, as you talk about wielding influence, please do not underestimate the power of the ripple effect in education. Small educational changes make huge interconnected enhancements to your system. One team starts to do it, and then someone on that team works on another team, then they use that strategy on the next team, and then the next team, and then the next school, and then the next district, and then it's statewide. The ripple effect is just unknown of your influence. And so please don't forget that when you take a strategy to a meeting and you say, hey, let's pause for a minute and do a SWOT analysis. Remember at the beginning when I told you to slow down? Hey, let's pause for a minute and think about which of our teachers think with their head, their heart, and their hand. Let's pause for a minute and identify our vision before we roll this out. And that ripple effect will carry with you. And then I just want to leave you all with a final quote. I cannot say whether things will get better if we change. What I can say is they must change if they are to get better. So just leaving you with a little bit of growth mindset as we end our session today. We do have a minute if you have any questions in the chat box. Otherwise, remember your navigation tool that you can go into the networking. There's nothing happening on the stage or in the reception right now, but you can use the event chat to check on any chats that are happening, or you can go to networking so that you can meet and talk with more of your friends that you're meeting today across the country, educators that you're meeting today. Thank you all so much for being here with our professional learning team.